Hello, welcome to the Rise Up with Margarita show, and I'm Margarita, and I help the new leaders of light activate light and empowerment for the planet and build epic businesses through power activation and leadership and mentorship. So welcome, and every week on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, I do some work on some topic, some topic that is really important for the new leaders of light. And so this is really for those individuals who are really ready to step up and be those visionaries, to be those new earth leaders. And so today's topic is the number one thing that blocks you from your Lightworker power. And so I'm going to share with you how Invisible Lightworkers and Empowered Lightworkers, since those who are Empowered Lightworkers who are here leading the light on the new earth, have certain attributes and certain traits that those who are Invisible Lightworkers do not, right? There's a difference. And so I'm going to share with you how they do things differently when it comes to this number one thing that that I'm going to share with you, and also what happens in your life when you don't address this number one issue, and then also a three-step process to transcend it when you're really serious about your commitment to really being a leader of light in the world. So welcome to you. I'm seeing that folks are popping in, and so glad to see you here. So here's the number one thing. I just will get right to the chase, right? And what I recommend is if you have any questions, then make sure that you share them a little bit later down the path. Hi, Faye. Great to see you here. You and Lee, great to see you. And so, yes, that's awesome. So the number one thing that blocks you from your Lightworker power is not committing to your purpose. And I know that you're probably expecting a super sexy, super glamorous share here, but it's really that simple, right? And that's what really differentiates, one of the things I'll say that differentiates Invisible Lightworkers from empowered ones, right? And that was also, it's so wonderful that Faye and Lee are here because, speaking of empowered light workers, right, who are committed to their purpose. And because that's really what it takes. That's really what it takes when you're opening up into your power. And it's the number one thing that is blocking you if you're not connected to your power. So not committing to your purpose is really going to affect how you show up in the world, right? Or should I say not show up in the world? And so there's a difference between how Invisible Lightworkers approach this topic and how Empowered Lightworkers approach this. And it's super important to know the difference, because if you don't know the difference between, okay, well, what does it look like to be in commitment to your purpose? What does it not look like to be in commitment to your purpose, right? How it looks and how it doesn't look. And so it's really important to know this, because if you realize then that you're not in that commitment to yourself, then you get to make a choice, right? And so Invisible Lightworkers, number one, they don't commit to their purpose, right? They don't commit to their purpose. They quit when obstacles come, right? That's what Invisible Lightworkers do, is that when, there's a challenge, when there's an obstacle, they'll see it as a sign that they're supposed to stop. And so usually they stop. And so that's what an Invisible Lightworker will do, is that they'll bump up against a challenge, and then they'll just stop because it's a challenge, right? Number three, they will stay stuck in their head, right? Where they might say something like, well, it's not logical for me to do this, right? Or it's not logical, it's not reasonable, it doesn't make sense, right? When you're saying those kinds of things, you're actually stuck in your head because you're not connected to and trusting your heart. And I'll give you some examples of what trusting your heart looks like as well. But when you're staying stuck in your head, that's something that Invisible Lightworkers do because they need everything to be linear. And when you're really a light worker and you're really working with light and you're really working with light frequency and energy and vibration, you're actually working with a vibration. You are actually trusting your heart. You're really connected to that vibration, right? And invisible light workers, they're not yet connected to that vibration in themselves. They think everything needs to be pushed and like it's aggressive and you need to like by all means necessary, kind of thing, like where it's just, there's no connection to the heart level, right? It's all in the head and it's all like, I need it to be reasonable. I need it to be logical. I need it to make sense. And as soon as you say those kinds of words, you are stuck in your head and you're not connected to your heart. And when you're not connected with your heart, you can't connect with your purpose, right? Another thing that invisible light workers do is they will have a fixed mindset. And what I mean by that is that light workers will have a fixed, light workers who have a fixed mindset will say things like, oh, that's not possible. Or, I can't possibly do that. Or I don't see how that can happen, right? They might say things like that, where they just really see things as a certain way, like it can only be done a certain way, or my healing needs to look a certain way. It needs to look like this person does this, or that person does that, and it's going to line up really nice like ducks in a row, right? That's when there's a fixed mindset, because there's no room for magic. There's no room for God. There's no room for the universe, great spirit, however you want to call it, to show up and be magical in your life, right? So that's super, super important to really connect with. And another thing that will pop up with invisible light workers when it comes to commitment or not really being connected to that is the need to prepare and to do research. And so I hear this a lot from light workers who are not yet connected with their power, that they need to prepare themselves. They need to, like do some research. They need to do this first. They need to do that first. And what that all really is, it's code for procrastination. That's just what it is, right? And I just call a spade sometimes. And the reality is that when you are only in preparation mode, you're not in doing mode, right? And of course you want to have some kind of alignment and connected to your intuition before you just go out there and do stuff, right? But when you are stuck in preparing, researching, let me think about this, let me wait on the universe to give me a sign, right? All of that is just code for procrastination. And that's where you get to go deeper. If you're there right now, you get to go deeper into, okay, what am I resisting in myself? What am I putting off about my journey, right? Because that's what's going on, is that you're putting your destiny like to the side here. And so that's super important to notice. It's really that perfectionism too, right? It's that I need to be perfect. I need things to be perfect. I'm going to wait for everything to be perfect, right? Anything where it's surrounded by needing to be perfect, that is really covering what the real issue is. And that's actually one of the other things too I was about to share is, waiting to be perfect. That's also an issue for, I'm talking about the invisible light workers. I'm going to speak into the empowered light workers in a moment. But it's good to have an understanding of the differentiation, right? Because when you are waiting to be perfect, you're waiting for things to fall down from the sky and just plop in your lap, right? Like your power, like your purpose, like all the things you want in the world. You're waiting for things to just pop in, right? And the reality is that when you're waiting, you're actually giving your power away to others, and you're basically saying, when someone else shows up with blank or X, then I will be in my power, right? So you're actually giving your power away to someone else for, to dictate how you're going to show up in the world, right? And that's the same thing too with, light workers who want to show up and be on social media and be visible. But they're like, oh, but I might get this comment from somebody, right? I might get judged, right? But then you're allowing, again, you're giving your power away to these people who you don't even know or who don't know you. You're giving them the power of whether or not you show up in your purpose. And I wouldn't recommend it. Wouldn't recommend it. Faye is sharing progress over perfection. Just get in the ring, right? Yes, exactly, Faye. You know it. You know it. And I'm seeing a comment here, trying and putting ourselves out there is a good start. Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to share with you in a little bit how that gets to open a little bit, right? Because it's really important to, rather than just like slap something on the wall and like hope it sticks, right? Like there's a way to kind of connect to what's aligned for you and to act from that place, right? So that's super important. Another thing that invisible light workers might do when it comes to committing to their purpose is like, and this is a little bit related to what I was sharing before, is waiting for divine intervention or a sign from the universe. Like, I see this a lot too with light workers who are not yet connected to their power. Like they're like, well, I'm going to wait until I draw a card that says it's time for me to do what I need to do, right? Like, again, they're like waiting for some sign, rather than giving themselves that choice, because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to a choice. It doesn't come down to someone else doing something and then you're going to step into your power. It's like you get to choose whether you're in your power or not, right? It's not up to someone else for you to be in your power. Because if that's your thought, then that's where part of the work gets to happen first, right? And also another thing that invisible light workers do when it comes to committing or not committing to their purpose and what they're creating in the world is that they will take challenges personally. And what I mean by that is that, let's say you want to, I don't know, you want to make something happen, right? Like I'm going to take my friends Faye, my friend Faye and Lee and their event that they recently created, right? And they actually literally traveled intercontinentally in order to create their event, right? And as an example, an invisible light worker, like let's say they came up against booking the flight, right? Like maybe they had an issue with booking the flight and they're having a tough time with booking the flight, right? And an invisible light worker will take that as like, oh, this is not meant for me. This means that I'm not meant to do my purpose. This means that, like I'm on the wrong path. Like they'll make it an emotional story, right? They make it an emotional issue and they make it about them. They make it like I'm bad or I'm wrong or that kind of thing, right? And that's what an invisible light worker does. But an empowered light worker would instead take that situation and be like, okay, so what are my alternatives here? What are the things that, I could do instead, or how could I make this happen, right? Like they figure it out. That's what empowered light workers do. That's what new leaders of the new earth do, right? They figure it out, and it's super important to do that. Okay, so another thing, I'm seeing some folks really are connecting with some of these things I'm sharing here. And just a reminder, please make sure to, if you've got any questions about this topic specifically, not the general, the state of the world, right? Like about this topic, because I like keeping things focused. It's super important to kind of bring that to the end there. So I can really just kind of share what I want to teach on today and then answer some questions for you. And Faye is also confirming here too, right? We even had delays and issues with our flights, but I was like, no way, I'm coming, New York. Lee kept saying it's a test for us to keep going. See, that's what I'm talking about. Push on and stay strong, right? And that's the thing is that, when you are on point with your purpose, with your destiny, you're just like, well, I know it's going to happen, right? So, and this is where it begins, right? Like you kind of choose and you figure it out. You choose you and you figure it out and you're like, okay, how can I make this happen anyway? And, I shared my story with you when I went to Holbox, Mexico, and, the 10 million things that popped up just getting to Holbox, Mexico, which is kind of like a little bit remote island where you needed to like first get into the airport and then take a shuttle to the ferry and then take the ferry to the other side and then take a golf cart cab somewhere else. It was just like an expedition, and I mean, there were all kinds of things that popped up. And if I were not connected with my power, I would have given up and taken that as a sign from the universe. But because I'm not, disconnected from my power, in fact, I'm very much connected to my power, I'm just like, okay, this is happening. All right, this is happening. And you know what? I'm not going to die out here. So it's just going to happen. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And that's what empowered light workers do, is that they trust the mystery. They don't know what the hell's going on like in the next second sometimes, but they just show up and then they trust the mystery and beautiful things occur, right? So another thing is that with invisible light workers, when it comes to being committed to their purpose, often they may think that they're already in their power and that they don't need help, right? Even if their relationships may be falling apart, even if their career is not satisfying, even if they're at a soul-sucking day job, or, or they're broke, like all these signs of things not being aligned, right? And when you're not in your power, it shows up in all aspects of your life. As I say often, is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything in your life. Like the way you approach something is the way you approach everything in life, right? And invisible light workers who are not yet connected with their power, who are not really new earth leaders just yet, right, will often be like, oh, I'm in my power. Like they have like one good meditation, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm in my power. I am like, full on embodied, right? And it's like, no, it takes more than a good meditation to be in your power, right? Like it's actually a choice. And, and a couple things that I'm going to share in the 3-step process about transcending this challenge around being blocked in your power. And so that's super important to be aware of, and another thing, and there's 2 more things that invisible light workers do that really are kind of like their approach to being committed, or should I say not committed, to their purpose, is that they don't prioritize themselves or their purpose, right? They're just kind of like traveling through the seat of their pants and hopefully, something good happens, right? Like that's a very kind of unconscious way to approach your life as a creator, right? Because every one of you is a creator. You are actually actively creating your reality at this very moment, with every single decision, with every single choice you make, with every anything that you're given like a choice on, right? At every given moment, even throughout the day, you are creating your reality. So that's super important to know. And when you don't prioritize yourself, number one, you're also going to get burned out real quick. And if you don't prioritize your purpose and you say you'll get to it later, the reality is you won't, right? Because if it's not a priority now, if you're not making it a priority now, then it just won't be. And then you won't fulfill your purpose. And that would be, something that would be really sad if that were to happen, right? And the last thing I want to mention, when it comes to the topic of being committed to your purpose, if you're an invisible light worker, is that you lone wolf your journey. Like you're just like, oh, I'll figure this all out myself. And, it's one of those things where, I'll figure it all out, right? And there's like, the reality is that when you lone wolf things, you can totally do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. And the reason why is because the new earth and the ascension journey is not about doing things on your own. It's not about lone wolfing things. It is about community. It is about getting the support you need. It is about, getting the help you need from someone who's been where you want to be, right? And being in the acceleration of this new earth frequency, because that's really, it's a vibration, right? All this stuff that I've just shared, where you're not committing to your purpose, you're waiting for things to be perfect, you're not really connected with your power, not prioritizing yourself over your purpose, that all holds a very specific frequency. And the frequency that you carry is going to equal that vibration that you are creating. And, you know, it's really kind of like it's a congruency of energy, right? It's nothing personal. It's not the universe punishing you or anything like that. It's you get to, if something's not in alignment in your life, you get to do a check-in with yourself. You get to do that internal work and do that inner work and figure out, okay, where am I out of alignment with myself and what I'm creating and what I want in the world, right? Because, you know, that is, first of all, an important thing to do. And then it's really about upgrading your frequency. And that's why I'm always, you know, talking about doing your healing work, doing your inner healing, right? So you're not functioning from this like gaping wound of trauma, like, right? You know, because I mean, that's not what an empowered light worker does, right? The empowered light worker, they will do the inner work. They will go to all the scary places. Yes, you know, shadow work, but that's not the only piece that you get to do, right? It's really about really going all in and getting really deep with yourself and connecting with who you are, right? And all of these things are really, really important. And as you clear all that out, all that gunk, all that like human crap, right? You know, just all this, you know, stuck stuff, right? That is keeping you and holding you back. Then once you really clear that, then you can actually start raising your frequency, really. And I love this phase saying, Lee always says, fill your cup first. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm seeing some questions here. And again, just letting you know that I won't be answering questions until later on. So those are some of the points around how invisible light workers approach commitment to their purpose and to what they're creating in the world. Empowered light workers, on the other hand, here's how they approach commitment. Here's how they approach committing to their purpose. First of all, they commit to it, right? It's not like, oh, okay, in this moment where I'm feeling good, I commit to it. But when I feel like crap, I will not commit to it anymore. You know, that's not, they don't do that. They're just like, okay, this situation sucks, right? And I'm still committed to my purpose, right? Like it's still a commitment. When you're committed to something, you are committed to something, right? You're committed to your purpose. And I'll go so far as to say, you're either committing at one given moment in time, you're either committing to your fear or you're committing to your purpose and your light and your God self, okay? Because you really can't have both coexist at the same time. They just don't, right? So you can either commit to your fear, commit to being a limited being, commit to, you know, like, I can't do this, it's not possible, blah, 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 right? Or you can commit to, yes, sure, I might be experiencing a challenge right now, but I know that I am committed to my purpose, to what reality I want to create for humanity, and I'm getting it, right? Because it's my destiny. Right? That's what an empowered light worker does, is that they commit to their purpose, no matter if they're having a good day or a bad day, right? It's not dependent on your mood. It's not dependent on your emotion. Your commitment is your commitment, right? Another thing that empowered light workers do is that they don't quit when they experience challenges, right? So when you experience a challenge and you're an empowered light worker, you don't say, oh, okay, this is a sign from the universe. This is a sign from my guides that I'm supposed to stop. They don't say that shit, right? What they say is like, first of all, they might get it out of their system and have a moment, have some choice words even. I know I do, right? And then you get your shit back together. And the whole thing is that when you're an empowered light worker, it's not that you never have a bad day. It's not that it never takes you out anymore, right? It's not that it takes you out anymore, you know? And it's also that whole thing of like, you know, good vibes only. That's a bunch of crap. Because the reality is that there are going to be those days when you don't have good vibes only, right? But are you still committed to your purpose during those moments? You know, are you going to still continue and move ahead and figure it out, right? And that's what an empowered light worker does, is that they don't quit when they experience challenges. Like, for instance, that travel example that I gave you, right? You can either figure out, you can either get a different flight if your flight that you wanted didn't get booked, or there was a problem with it or something, and an invisible light worker would just be like, oh my God, this is a sign from the universe, and I'm not meant to go on this flight, and whatever, right? It's like, but the empowered light worker, they'll be like, okay, what other flights are available? How else could I get there? How else can I make this happen? Do I have a friend who has a private jet? Looking at all the options, right? Another thing that empowered light workers do is that they develop grit and focus on what they're creating. And what I mean by grit and focus is that they just put on their blinders, right? Like, they're just like, this is my vision, right? The heart and the third eye, right? Coming together. This is my vision into the world. And this is my destiny. And so they're very much connected to it, right? They're connected to their purpose. And their purpose is not that they're a healer or that they help people, right? Like, all light workers are here to do that. What I'm talking about is your specific transformation that you provide in the world that transforms humanity, that upgrades humanity, right? And it's your jam. It's something that only you can do in the way you can do it, right? Empowered light workers are connected to that, and then they go in. They just go in. They're just like focused. The blinders are on, and the blinders are on, right? And then they just like keep going. And they're kind of like eagle eye focused, with the frequency of, I'm ready, God, right? Like, it's not like, I'm ready, God, as long as it looks like this, right? Because as soon as you start putting conditions on it, you're trying to micromanage God, you're trying to micromanage the universe, and it doesn't work that way. That in no way means that you are trusting the mystery at all, right? You're actually not trusting not only the mystery, you're not trusting God, and you're also not trusting yourself. That's what it means when you are like putting conditions on your journey. So yeah, it's developing the grit and the focus. So it means, you continually show up. You commit to yourself. You're continually showing up with actions, not just words, not just saying, oh yeah, I'm this empowered light worker. No, you actually put into action your empowerment in the world, right? You're actually taking action. You're following your intel, your heart intelligence, and you're applying your heart technology into the world with aligned action that is highly inspired and scares the crap out of you, right? Because if it doesn't scare the crap out of you, and you're not stepping forward with it, then you're not doing it right. Because if you are prioritizing the comfort, if you are prioritizing waiting for things to settle, right? Those are things that an invisible light worker prioritizes. An empowered light worker, they say, okay, this is super uncomfortable. I am not liking this at all. And I'm going to do it today, right? Because they also take quick action. And empowered light workers, they take quick action based on their intuition, based on their heart intelligence, and they apply immediately. They don't wait until someone else shows up, or they don't wait until something else happens. They make the choice to show up for themselves now, and they do the damn thing, right? So they're developing the grit and their focus, and really just focusing on that. Another thing they do is that they trust their intuition and their heart, and like I said, they take quick action based on it. So it's not only just about taking quick action, it's about quick aligned action where you are connected with your purpose, you're connected with your light, you're connecting with who you are. And then as you connect with that, you connect with your heart intelligence, you connect with your heart, right? And you lead from your heart. That's super important, right? Because a lot of light workers are like, I'm going to push and I'm going to push and I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to be super pushy, aggressive, right? And they think that is what being empowered means. That has nothing to do with being empowered, right? Because anytime you're pushing, that is not the energy of light, right? Light doesn't need to push. Light just is light, and then things just open, right? And when you're empowered and you're opening into your power, all you do is need to be, you're just literally that vibration. And it just emanates, and you don't have to push, you don't have to shove, you just open, right? And that's what empowered light workers do, is that they just open to their future, to their destiny, to what they're here to create. There's no pushing involved, right? When they do need to apply themselves and take a stand for something and dig in their heels for the light in order to take a stand for their purpose, that's called grit, right? And so that's super, super important to know the difference. Speaking of which, another thing empowered light workers do is that they have a possibility mindset. So where invisible light workers have a fixed mindset of, it needs to look like this, my healing process will look like this, my journey will look like this, right? There's like no room for magic. Empowered light workers, on the other hand, are like, what could be possible in this moment? If this is something that I really, really, really want, how could I make that happen? You know, and then they just start figuring things out. Some of it makes no logical sense, or should I say a lot of it makes no logical sense, right? Because if you are really working with energy, you're not going from what is logical, because energy is not logical. Energy is, you know, ahead of you, behind you, diagonally from you, in a spiral, right? It's not a linear experience. So invisible light workers will be like still in that linear experience. And empowered light workers just come from like anything can happen at any given moment. And they don't just say it, they actually live it, right? Because a lot of, you know, light workers will say that and they'll be like, yes, I'm open to everything that's for me. But are you really? Right? Like, check yourself, and are you really? Because invisible light workers will say that, but there's nothing to back it up. Empowered light workers will say that and they mean it. Okay, so that's the difference there too. And also leading from your activated heart, really awakening that, opening that portal, because your heart, just like every chakra in your body is a portal, your heart is a huge portal for you, for your creation, for your higher self, for everything you're creating in the world, right? Like nothing that is connected to your purpose and your destiny happens without involvement of your heart, right? And you know, there are a bunch of light workers who are more on the invisible light worker end, who are not yet really connected to their heart. And so that is a big problem there, right? So an empowered light worker, on the other hand, they are connected to their heart and they lead from their heart. Absolutely. Okay. All right. And another thing that empowered light workers do is that they know divine timing isn't about choosing it. Isn't about waiting for it. It's about choosing it. So that's really important to know, right? Your divine timing doesn't come because you wait for it. It comes because you take ownership of it. You take ownership of your life. You take ownership and responsibility for your life. And that's also another differentiation that is between invisible light workers and empowered light workers, is that invisible light workers, they say, oh, I can't do this because someone else is doing this, right? I can't be in my power because someone might do that, right? Empowered light workers, they just commit to it, they open into it, and they take responsibility for everything they create. Invisible light workers, on the other hand, they don't take responsibility for everything that they create in the world. Like they're still in the blamey, victimhood, you know, all that stuff, right? Empowered light workers, on the other hand, they are like, yep, everything I created, even this crap over here, I created that too, right? They do. They take ownership of all of it, not only the good stuff, all the ugly, painful, embarrassing stuff too. They just do. Because the moment that you take ownership of everything you create, you see yourself as the creator in your life, right? And then you're creating everything from this conscious place. That's what empowered light workers do. They create the new reality, right? Because we all live in a hologram anyway, right? Like everything you're seeing, even the social media that we're on, I mean, it's all a hologram, right? So if you want to be empowered and you want to be empowered as a great creator being, then you get to take ownership for everything you're creating, and you start creating the reality that you want. And so if you're just popping in too, and, you know, I'm just going to let you know that if you're just popping in right now and you have some questions about what I'm talking about at this moment, just letting you know that you can check out the replay, because I've covered a lot of stuff already. So another thing with empowered light workers is that they don't take disappointments or failures personally. It's no longer this like, oh my God, is a commentary on me as a person, or me not getting what I want in this moment. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Doesn't mean that, you know, they suck as a human being, right? They don't see it like that. Instead, they see it as, you know, okay, so this didn't work. What else could? You know, so like this venue didn't work out. So what else could I do in this situation? And then they just open up into the possibility, and then they figure it out and make it happen, right? So it doesn't become this whole like, oh my God, you know, I'm a terrible person, or like this means that I'm not meant for any of this, right? Like they don't get emotionally like stressed out about it, right? Empowered light workers who are connected to their purpose and connected to their power, versus invisible light workers who are really that invisible, like you don't even know, like you can't even find them even on social media, or they have, you know, made their profiles private, right? Because they're like basically invisible and you can't really find them, right? And they're also not showing up in the world, which is also another reason why they're not visible. So empowered light workers, as I'm sharing, they don't take things personally. It's more like they test things out, and if something gets tested out and it doesn't work, they don't take it as a personal affront to their existence, right? They just say, okay, this thing didn't work. What else could we try, right? Another thing too is that they learn from their mistakes and tweak things to improve them. So one thing that I see a lot of invisible light workers do is that they avoid making mistakes. They avoid failure, right? And this is very much connected to their purpose, because if you are committed to your purpose, you are not going to take things that don't work out as failures. You know, you're going to just say, okay, that's information, because that's all it is. It's not like, you know, one of my coaches, she actually would say this thing, and I think she still says this to this day, kind of like, fail often, like fail as often as possible is something she would say. And it's super important to know that, because, you know, if you're not failing, that means you're not trying. And if you're not trying, that's failure in itself, right? Because if you're just not putting yourself out there because you're afraid of, I don't know, your ex finding your account and thinking you're off the deep end or whatever, like, I mean, that's all an emotional, you know, kind of thing. And if you don't put yourself out there, that is really the only way you could fail at your mission, is to just not show up to it. But if you're showing up and you're trying new things and you mess up or something doesn't work out correctly, I can't even tell you how many times I've done like webinars and master classes, and there was like some kind of tech glitch, or, you know, I learned of some disappointing news right before I went live and I was about to do some prolific activation, you know, like, I mean, an invisible light worker would be like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't, you know, I can't possibly show up on this live anymore, right? An empowered light worker is like, you know, they deal with it as much as they can in that moment, you know, and they show up for what they need to show up with, and then they work out their stuff later, you know, like they don't bring their shit into the live. They don't bring their like unresolved, unhealed stuff into whatever transmission, right? Because if you're doing that, you shouldn't even be channeling anything, right? You should really make sure you're a clear vessel to who you are and what you're here to channel from God into the world, right? And that takes clarity, and clarity comes from doing that inner work and getting super clear on your energy. And that's really important. Yes, and I'm seeing here, not trying or showing up is the real fail. Love that. Yeah, that's the only way you can fail, really. I see another comment here. Wow, I just did my first live and it was quite scary. Not many views, perceiving it as failure, but because of your words, I'm proud anyway. You should be damn proud. Be damn proud of your live. Woohoo! first live. Yes, I'm clapping you up for doing your first live, because spoiler alert, most times when you do your first live or your first couple of lives, there will be 0 people. There will be 0 people watching it, and don't take it personally, right? That's not a failure, because if you're expecting to just show up for the first time live and then expect like tons of followers, tons of engagement, you're like not living in reality, right? So the reality is that when you first start out, anyone starts out, the way I even started out was you just show up, start doing the damn thing. And probably no one will be there to watch your prolific live. But here's the thing too, just to kind of let you know, most people don't really watch you live. They will watch the replay. That's what most people do. So no failure. The failure would have been you didn't show up on your live. That would have been the only failure, right? So I love that you did it anyway, even though it was quite scary. So good on you. That's awesome. Christy's saying, that's awesome, you who did a live. Absolutely. Clap that shit up. That's amazing. Okay, so speaking of like empowered light worker traits, right? Another thing is that they prioritize failing as much as possible, which I just explained, right? So prioritize failing as much as possible. Because if you're not trying to fail, if you're not trying new things and, you know, looking forward to the failure, then you're not trying, you know. But if you're showing up and you're failing or making mistakes, you're making mistakes and you learn from mistakes, right? That's what you do with them. You learn what works and what doesn't. Another thing they do is you prioritize what's important to you. When you're an empowered light worker and you're committed to your purpose, right, is you prioritize what is important to you. And number 1 at the top of that list should be you. Should be you and your health and your energy and your frequency. Top of the list, okay? Because when you are not number 1 on your take care of things to do, you know, take care of these things, right, then guess how that will affect everything. You won't have the energy. You won't have the stamina. You won't feel good. You won't feel confident. And, you know, all these other things that'll happen, right? But when you prioritize yourself, your cup is full. You are feeling nourished at the start of your day. Like for me, one of those big things is making sure that I meditate. Like for me, that's a non-negotiable. I do that every single day, no matter what I've got scheduled, no matter even if I have a flight at 5 in the morning, I will wake up at, I don't know, like 2 in the morning or whatever, and I will get that meditation in. And, you know, because it goes beyond just like calming your sympathetic nervous system, which is how it began, right? It's actually about, okay, like calling in that God light within myself, activating that from within, you know, really augmenting my frequency and making sure I'm showing up in service. Like, I mean, that's also something that even I did today, right? Just to give you an example, is that when I was in meditation today, I was like, may I be of service today on this live, right? That's my commitment. Every single day, like if I've got a call with a client or I've got a group call that I'm leading with my group mentorship program, or you know I'm doing any work with anyone, that is one of the first things I say in meditation. I'm just like, who, you know, first of all, who can I serve today? How can I be of service today? And you know, just really getting, that's how you get your energetic ducks in a row, right? Not like, what can I push through today? How can I just be really aggressive and make this happen? You know, like it doesn't have to be like that. What can I open into today? You know? And so that is where you get to prioritize yourself and how you want to feel, and you set the tone for yourself on that day, right? And I do this every day because it's an everyday thing. And that's also what commitment means, is that you're committed to it every single damn day, you know? Another thing that empowered lightworkers do is they're always committed to expansion and learning, even if they're hitting their goals. So what I mean by that is that, you know, sometimes people will say, oh yes, I'm already in my power, I'm good, right? But when you're really in your power, you are always committed to your own expansion and to learning and to like, what can I learn? What can I understand about this situation? You know, what can I really receive and you know, really embody from this experience? And sure, you may not feel like that in a moment that is challenging, but afterwards, when you're an empowered light worker, you're actually, you know, kind of breaking it down a little bit. And you're like, so I learned this by experiencing this experience, right? It becomes a learning experience. Everything becomes a learning experience, not like me bad, you good, any of that crap. That's called division, right? But the reason I'm sharing this whole thing around invisible light workers and empowered light workers is so that you can kind of see what it takes to really be in your power as a light worker. It's not just feeling good on any given day. It is a certain level of frequency that you carry, that you hone consciously in order to be of service in the world, right? Those are what the leaders of the new earth do, right? And also, they value their time. And they invest in a coach or a mentor who can help them accelerate on their path. And what I mean by that in connection with valuing their time is because the invisible light workers who value being a lone wolf, they're going to just like drudge through all the free YouTube videos and Google everything and maybe follow stuff and get things for free, right? And they'll just keep doing that and hope that something sticks, right? But when you really prioritize your time, you don't have time to do all that, you know, like Googling for 10 million hours a day. You know, you don't have, not that you don't have time to do that. You can make time for it, but I wouldn't recommend it because that would be really honestly a waste of energy. If you really value your time and you value what you are creating in the world, you can actually then realize, well, I can actually accelerate on my path if I actually invest in a coach or a mentor that is already where I want to be. So that's really, really important. And I'm seeing a comment here too. One of my favorite Bjork lyrics is, the best way to start anew is to fail, and loving fail miserably and fail at creating the flow and then realign the whole. Yes, that's beautiful as well. So those are some of the differences there between how invisible light workers approach commitment to their purpose and how empowered light workers approach their commitment as well. And here's what happens in your life if you don't address this number one issue, if you don't commit to your powerful purpose in the world, right? You won't feel fulfilled in your life. Number one, that's a guarantee. I'll tell you that. Number two, you'll always feel like something is missing because you're not embodied in your power. So literally your soul will feel like there's something missing. It just does. It feels like there's kind of like this vacancy in your heart because you're not in the totality, in your wholeness of who you are. So your soul feels that on a really, really deep level, even if it's not a conscious understanding. Number three, what will happen is when you stay in fear, you continue creating a reality based on fear instead of power. And so that's what a lot of people on this planet are doing right now with all the news that they watch, you know, and all the things that, you know, are coming in the pipeline, right? Is like you can either be in fear and scarcity around your life, around everything that's going on, or you can be in your power because you chose to, you commit to it, and you're embodying it and you're cultivating it, right? So here's the 3-step process to transcending this. Be open to expansion, number one, and possibility instead of coming from a fixed mindset. That's number one. You need to be in that head space and heart space to be like in receiving mode, right? You need to be truly willing and open to come from a place of possibility and really see what else is there for you, right? Versus, oh, it needs to look like this. And if it doesn't, then that means that, you know, I'm not going to get what I want and, you know, all this other stuff, right? So that's the number one thing. Be open to expansion and possibility. Number two, be committed to your path, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. And so you get to do that by making a choice to be in commitment to yourself, to your light, to what you're creating in the world. Number three, consistently choosing what's aligned, no matter how scary it is. So that means making all those decisions and following through with all those decisions, even though it scares the shit out of you, but it's still aligned. You know it's going to grow you. You know it's going to expand you. You know it's going to make you a better person. You know it's going to help you reach your goals as a leader of the new earth. And so that's what leaders of the new earth do, is that they just consistently choose it, even though it makes them super uncomfortable. And I can't tell you how many times that I've done that. You know, I do that like actually on a daily basis. And sometimes if I'm not feeling like I'm not really putting myself out there enough, or I'm not really allowing myself to expand and be in that openness and possibility, I will actually be like, okay, what am I playing safe on? You know, like I actually start asking myself that. I'm like, what am I resisting about myself today? You know, and it's super important to have that internal inquiry so that you are consistently choosing what's aligned, even if it's scary. So I know that I just threw a bunch at you around, you know, the number one thing that blocks you from your Lightworker power, how invisible Lightworkers and empowered Lightworkers do things differently when it comes to commitment, what happens in your life if you don't address this number one issue, and the 3-step process to transcending it. So in regards to this topic, what questions do you have for me? Now I'm opening it up for questions. Karen's saying yes, facing uncomfortability as we speak. Good for you. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so anyone have any questions for me about this topic around, you know, this topic of committing to your purpose and really opening into being an empowered light worker? Because that's what you get to do, right? We are here to do big things. You are here to do big things. We are here to change the world. And if you are playing it safe, and if you're just like kind of staying in your comfort zone because it's all scary, or you don't want Joe Schmo like on the internet to like say mean things to you, you get to realign your priorities, right? Because this is super, super important. If you prioritize yourself and your purpose and what's important to you. Getting some good questions. Good questions, guys. Okay, so Rebecca's saying, what does sitting with fear look like? So that can look like, so let's say that example earlier today, right? Around like, okay, like maybe your flight got canceled for this really, really big event, and maybe it got canceled or something happened to it and it's not a possibility anymore, right? That might bring up some discomfort within you, right? Like maybe some fear or anxiety of like, okay, this is now confirming how, you know, just putting it out there, like, I don't get what I want. This is just now confirming I don't get what I want. And that maybe that's been a pattern, like a belief system, right? That's a belief. I don't get what I want, right? And so when you start to realize, okay, maybe that's something that's coming up, it doesn't feel comfortable to realize that you're thinking of this, right? And it feels ugly. It feels maybe a little embarrassing. Let yourself sit with all of that. Let yourself sit in the discomfort of the embarrassment of the new awareness, and you just demonstrate compassion to yourself, you know, and just be like, okay, you know, and then you start going down that rabbit hole of like, okay, you know, what do I need right now? What compassion do I need? You might even be like remembering a time, like one of the first times where you got this belief of you don't get what you want, right? Maybe it was when you were 5, right? And maybe you start remembering that moment, right? And then you let yourself go there, not from a place of rehashing and staying in your trauma, right? But from a place of curiosity and from a place of observation, and be like, okay, so when I was 5, that was when I first realized and learned this belief system. How can I be a compassionate person to myself at this very moment, right? And like allowing yourself to be in the discomfort of like, ugh, like all the grossness, all of the discomfort, all of like, I just don't want to deal with this, right? Like staying with it, staying with that uncomfortability and that feeling of pain, and maybe even remembering that pain, right? Like sitting with that. What is coming up for you? How can you show compassion for yourself in this moment, right? And those are some examples of what sitting in your fear looks like. So I hope that was helpful. So Lillian is asking, can your life purpose change from year to year? Not really. Not if you're really honed in on it. If you're changing things every year, you're not connected. You're not tapped in, right? You're just like kind of like, oh, this sounds nice. This sounds nice. It's not about what sounds nice or what feels good in the moment, right? It's about getting into the core of who you are. And it's about getting into connection with what is the essence of who I am, of my soul frequency, right? And really connecting in. And that takes getting connected with your higher self. All right. Karen is asking, how do you manage when you feel like you have a million things on your to-do list? Sometimes I can stress myself out before I can even follow through. Yeah, so that's when you get to be really ruthless. I'm just going to say you get to be really ruthless with your to-do list. Do all of them need to be done? Probably not. And certainly not today. You know, like the priority is, and this is more if like you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader of the new earth, who is already showing up and activating light in the world and that kind of thing, you're going to prioritize what will first help you do what you need to do. Meaning like, okay, do I need to take certain supplements, right? Like I certainly do. Do I, you know, like, do I need to take care of this so that I can be taken care of, right? And those should be a priority. Because if you can't function, or like, let's say, you know, you need to find a sitter so that you can like, you know, take care of certain things for yourself. If you have a child, like if you're a mom, for instance, then you prioritize that. And you prioritize also what are the things that are absolutely necessary. And if you're an entrepreneur, that could mean, you know, what are the money-making aspects of what you're creating in the world, and really honing in on that. And anything that is not aligned gets cut off. Like if it's just some random thing you think you need to do, it's off. Like, I mean, this is I'm talking about like how I would deal with like an oversaturated to-do list. I'd be like, out, crossing this out. Like I just get like, I'm just like, it's done. I'm not even doing this, right? And you just get really ruthless about all these extraneous, extra, like not even important things that you at the moment think it's important, right? You know, or you can reschedule it to like a week from now or 2 weeks from now. And then you put in your calendar and then forget it because it's done. You already delegated it to another time. Another thing too, if you're also an entrepreneur, you get an assistant, right? You know, my assistant is awesome. You know, I'm so grateful. You know, she takes care of a lot of things like on the back end and things that are not really my zone of genius, so I can focus on my zone of genius, right? Because if your energy is all over the place, then you get to prioritize how you are, you know, investing your time, you know? So I hope that's helpful because it's super important. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so how do you know if something is your intuition telling you to push through, or is it okay to rest and be comfortable as well? So your intuition will never tell you to push through something, right? Like it'll maybe say, you know, stay in it, you know, like, and just hang in there, right? Like that's what your intuition would probably say. It wouldn't be like, push through, like make it happen. Like that's not your intuition. Your intuition wouldn't speak that way. Your intuition comes in calm, clear. It's not coming in with a lot of bells and whistles. It's not loud and obnoxious. It's just like, this is the truth, right? And it's just super still, super calm. And that's why you access it when you are in that neutrality within yourself, right? And sure, so it's fine to rest and you know, be in your comfort. But one thing that you get to see is there's a difference between being comfortable and prioritizing your comfort in terms of your growth, right? Because you can grow and it doesn't have to be this violent thing, right? Because that's something that a lot of invisible light workers have this impression of, that, you know, growth is this violent, like tear you to pieces kind of experience. And so if you're really at the beginning of your experience on your journey, maybe it might feel that way. But the reality is that, you know, when you're really in your flow, like, I mean, I don't look at things as pushy anymore. Like, and that's really another difference between the invisible light worker and the empowered light worker, is that the empowered light worker is just kind of like moving, like they've already revamped their entire schedule so that it's totally in flow with what they want to do in the world, with the things that they value. So a lot of entrepreneurs, for instance, they might value time with their spouse, more time with their spouse. They might enjoy more freedom to travel. They might enjoy more time with their family, right? And if that's your priority, you build your life around that. Like me, I build my life around, not my work. That's what the worker, like the employee mindset is like about, right? When you're the visionary and you're the leader, you lead also by example, and you like will revamp your life so that it works for you and you're in your flow. So that's how my life is now. It's just like, it revolves around the things that are important to me rather than work, and work shouldn't feel like work, right? Work is just like your work, the work you provide in the world, your service you provide in the world, and you embrace it. And it's something that fills you up to do it, right? Because you're working with clients who are aligned and all that good stuff. So that's really important to know that there's a difference, because I don't like move through my day and be like, oh my God, like I need to just rest for a moment. I just need to rest. Right? It's like, maybe if I just had 3 hours of sleep the night before, maybe I'll take a nap. But my schedule is designed so that I can take a nap if I want to, right? Like, it's just built into my schedule. Like, so I don't feel like I need to like, oh my God, can I just rest? There's so much growth, right? Like it's because I'm always growing anyway, and I'm committed to it. And so it's just this big flow. So it's the energy of like pushing and, making things happen and just opening up into it. And it just like happens, right? It's a whole different energy. Okay, another great question here. What about finances? I know my purpose. I want to commit to it, but I'm concerned if I quit the work I am doing now and 100% commit to my purpose, the bills will go unpaid. Yeah, so you get to trust the mystery, right? You get to trust yourself, because that's all what that's about. Like it's never, whenever money issues come up, it's never about the money. It's always about the belief you have in yourself, if you can do it or not, if you feel you're capable or not. And that's what's really going on there. It's not about money. You're really questioning, can I make this happen? Right? And the only way you can find out is if you actually do it. And then also, and also there are ways to do it. Like, you might not want to like quit it severely. And then now all of a sudden you're just like starting entirely from scratch with no savings, no nothing, right? Like, but still, even then you can make it happen, right? But I'm saying if you want to kind of like segue, you could go like part-time and then like start opening up into your bigger purpose. People do that too. And but the bottom line is that you can either stay where you're at a job that doesn't serve you, or you can step into committing to what you know is your destiny. And the one thing I do know is that when you step into your destiny, that you create a new reality. But that doesn't happen until you actually step forward and do it. So that, my dear, is up to you. Okay. Faye asks, what are your quick tricks to shift the energy when you do have those shitstorm days? An extra meditation, a stiff drink. All of the above. Well, here's what I would normally do, right? Like, let's take one of my shit days. Well, like I might just take an extra nap. Fortunately, my schedule is, I create it in such a way that I have all this wiggle room and space to do what I want. Like maybe I might one day want to go out for a walk in the middle of my day, right? And then I can just do that. Like the meditation thing, you could definitely do that, but that's not like a totally natural thing. Like I might do some breathing exercises. And I think for me, let's see, what do I really do when those things happen? Well, like let yourself have your moment, right? Where you like might curse up a storm or, hit a pillow or whatever you need to do for a moment, right? And, if you need to take a nap, take a nap. Sometimes even that simple action can be really helpful. Another thing I do is that I might sage myself. I might cleanse myself. One thing that I do, and for me, it's like just super easy. I just like literally bring it in through my crown and I just clear it all out and it's done. right? It's just like all the extra, like all that chatter and all that like distraction energy, like, because that happens a lot, right? And especially since I'm in the middle of New York, where there's tons of distraction energy here, like, and not everyone is really conscious of their energy nor working with it, right? So there's a lot of that going around here. So I've just gotten really good at just being like, right, and being done with it, like in like a few seconds. And then if I feel like it, then maybe like I have a really great meal. You know, do something that is pleasurable, that is healthy for you, you know? Like, I mean, that's something that I definitely do, is that I might, you know, say, okay, this is not the time for me to, like, for example, make a post, like time for me to like decompress. And that might mean taking a nap. It might mean having a delicious meal. It might mean, you know, disengaging from whatever is upsetting at the moment, and just like, you know, have a moment to myself. And you might even like just do something that helps you decompress. And if you're close to nature, I can't speak from that because I'm in Midtown Manhattan, but if you're close to nature, like go out and for a walk, you know, go on the mountains, hug a tree, you know, all that juiciness. But since I do have like tons of crystals here, I do actually work with them a lot too. And so it just really depends what you feel, but it's about really connecting in with your heart. Like, okay, what do I need right now? Like, and you can even like discern it a little bit. Like, okay, how am I feeling right now? Okay, I'm feeling like I'm not being honored in this situation, or I feel like, you know, something like that. Like, just get clear on what it is you're feeling versus being this ball of emotion, right? But I think like some of those things are the things I would try. Usually I would just like kind of just channel it in and be done with it. You know, channel in God light and have that just shatter out all the distraction energy and be done with it. And then just make sure my energy is clear and move on with my day. That's usually what I do. And hopefully you can hear me, because apparently someone upstairs has decided to do some construction while I'm on this live. So I'm going to answer probably one more question because we're already at, you know, past the hour. So I'm just going to just do a little scrolling. Faye saying, yes, sage yourself, take a walk. Yes, New York is a definite energy tester for sure. Also love that you say, allow the tantrum, then move on. Yeah, like have your moment. Like, you know, have a good yell, or, you know, one thing that I would like to do sometimes is like I'll just like rock, you know, because I mean, for some of you who know my background in punk rock, like I'll just like maybe put something on. And although I don't listen to punk rock as much these days, like maybe I'll put on like The Cult or something and just like rock out for like a song and just like, yeah, you know, and just like let it out, right? And just like, and then be like, okay, end scene. Right? That's usually what I do. Like get it out, you know, you're not hurting anyone, you know, but you're getting it out in a healthy way for yourself. But yeah, the sage actually does help. I do like Palo Santo during those moments, or sage. Those are super helpful. Okay, you're welcome. Lee hugs all the trees and crystals. Yeah, that's me and Stacy. We're always hugging the trees, always hugging the crystals. Like crystal huggers, tree huggers. Yes, that's us. So anyway, really great questions. Awesome, awesome, awesome. This was a really juicy live, and so that's why we went over. So thank you for your diligence to being engaged even after beyond the hour, right? Because that's really important to be super engaged with your power, because that's the only way you can really start shifting things, is to create awareness around what you're creating, create awareness around what you're choosing, create awareness around what it is you are creating in your life and experiencing. And then make a shift, right? If there's something that's not in at your level of what you desire, change it. Right? Shift it up, change something, choose something different. And so, and if you noticed in what I've shared, like maybe I shared some of these invisible light worker traits and maybe you resonate with them and you're like, okay, great, I'm aware of these things now. And then you find that you want to be more of an empowered light worker and really come from that leadership level, then now you know what it takes, right? Now you know that it takes this like shift in frequency. It takes a shift in mindset. It takes a shift in consciousness. And I cannot tell you how important being connected to your consciousness is right now. It's like I talk about it ad nauseum probably, so you know what I'm about to say. But we are in a war of consciousness right now. And it's really the war on your consciousness. So that's why it's super important to be really aware about what you are allowing to enter into your energy field, what you're allowing to enter into your ears, into your frequency, into your body, into your mind, into your soul, because everything that you are allowing in is going to influence your energy field. It's going to influence it, guaranteed. So you want to make sure that whatever you're surrounding yourself with, infusing yourself with, is all like uplifting, supporting you, helping you get to where you want, right? And if it's not, like me, I'm done with it. Like if it doesn't serve me, I'm out, right? And I don't feel bad about that. I just don't. I don't care about, you know, like people's feelings, you know, don't pay my bills, right? People's opinions don't pay my bills is something that like I've heard someone say. It's not something I've quoted, right? It's something someone else has said, and I'm just like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't pay my bills, right? Other people's opinions don't pay your bills, and you get to be in the fullness of who you are, no matter what, and you get to choose yourself, and you get to choose your commitment to yourself. So that is my challenge to you, is that this week, make a different decision where you are not in alignment, where you're not getting the results that you want. Make a different decision. And then commit to it. Commit to that decision, even when you're having a shitty day. And just keep doing it. And it doesn't have to be this big, extravagant experience. Just like in that given moment, you can just simply say, okay, this sucks, and I'm still committed. That's it. You know, it can be that simple. Make a different decision. Yes, Faye. And so, you know, for those of you New Earth leaders who are here to activate the light, empower the planet, who are ready to, you know, open into your epic businesses that are serving the world and making a difference in the world. And if you are that person who's connected to your heart and you're connected to your purpose and you're ready for what's next, DM me your vision as an empowered light worker, and let's talk about where I can support you, because I can. All right. Have a wonderful, empowered week, everyone. Much love, light, and power to you. Have a wonderful week. Oh, P.S. Today's 4/4. Fours are all about foundation. And you want to talk about foundation? This is perfect, right? Committing to your purpose. That's like one of your foundations. If you haven't done it, do it. If you're serious about what you incarnated on this planet to do, step number 1. Okay, everyone. Much love, light, and power.